Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Welcome to a new edition of the Sports Shop 27. I'm your host, Jermaine Coulter. To my far right, got my co-host, Kevin Johnson, KJ.
Right.
And in the middle, we got today's special guest. We got an all ACC legend in the house, former Clemson University basketball point guard. He played from 84 to 88. Played with Horace Grant and I think Elgin Campbell. You name it, the big dogs came from Clemson during that era. He also became a legend at Clemson. He's actually probably in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to go ahead and give it to him.
Man, 2009.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we'd like to thank the all-time assist leader, Grayson Marhsall Jr. What's going on, Grayson?
What's up, man?
You know, everything was good. That promo was awesome until you got to the last screen. You spelled my last name wrong.
We got to fix that.
But it's all good. It's all good. I'm totally.
They know who you is, man.
I want to keep it light. I just want to keep it light. You guys are you guys are actually doing an amazing thing. Sports Shop 27. I was checking out some of the other episodes, and you guys are really, really doing fun stuff. I think that you are building your own brand and identifying sports the way you see it. Yeah, so to have an opportunity to converse with you guys and hopefully leave something for the people that are going to watch and maybe document this as one of the signature conversations that we have, because I want to give truth, I want to give facts, I want to have fun, but at the same time I want to make sure that people embrace this platform, because there are a lot of people out there doing the things that you guys are doing. Mm-hmm. And you both Jerome and KJ are doing it with a spirit of excellence. You're doing it with a mindset of perfection, knowing that you're constantly growing and becoming. And I think being a part of that at any time is a blessing for me. So thank you guys for real.
Man, thank you, man. Well said.
Thanks for coming on the show again. For the people that don't know you, let them know where you're from and a little bit about your background.
I'm born and raised in the 202, Washington, D.C. That's home. That's my love.
Chocolate City.
That's it. And you know what? It's funny now, KJ. It's not that no more. My sister still lives there, and it's no longer Chocolate City the way I knew it, but it's still always going to be home. Moved to Maryland at a young age. But I went to school in D.C., so I graduated from St. John's, an all-boys military school in D.C. It was all boys then. Every private school in D.C. was all boys at the time, or all girls. So lettered numerous times in high school. I played football, baseball, and basketball. Baseball is probably my first love. I ran track, and I did those things as well. And then obviously was able to get the opportunity to come to Clemson, and that was a crazy story in and of itself. So just being from home, I'm a northern guy, but I've been living in Florida since 1989. So I've probably been living here over half my life. So I consider myself a Floridian now. But 202 DC will always be home.
That's what's up, man. DC. Hey, name some famous athletes you looked up to, man, to help you out with your craft.
You know what's funny is that as a player growing up, KJ, I just appreciated good players. I didn't necessarily have one. As a point guard, I gravitated toward those guys. So obviously Magic, Isaiah, those are guys that I really looked at. But I was more.
I didn't cut you off. We got a little feedback coming in.
Is that from me? Hold on, let me see something.
Check your audio real quick before we proceed.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. We good there? Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. It's staticky.
I don't know where the feedback's coming from. Hold on.
Hold on. There we go. Oh.
Okay.
Hold on.
What's going on?
See if this helps me. Hold on one second.
You got Terrence Flagler in the house.
Hold on, let me see something.
Former 49 Super Bowl.
Hold on, let me do this. Let me see if I can get.
Check. Can you hear us?
Hey, Jermaine, I can get go
Okay,
out,
y'all
man.
good now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
You good now? Okay, so I'm gonna get these here. But there's still some crackling. I don't know where the crackler's coming from. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know where it's coming from.
Hold on, let me see something. Okay, Jerome, you good?
Yeah, Jermaine. Yes, I'm here.
Jermaine, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jermaine, good. No, so I think it must have been KJ. So anyway,
He's gonna come
where
back
we at?
in. Go ahead.
Okay, so DC, born that's home, and I think that that kind of reared me and raised me a certain way. Growing up in the city, playing ball in the city was just something that was kind of signature to who we were. What's up, T Flag? Kind of signature to who we were. And then being in Florida, Terrence Flag from Fernandina Beach. So I'm in Flag's hometown right now. I've been here 30 years, so I think I'm a Floridian now when it comes down to it. And I'll be a Floridian for a while now until I go overseas. I think I want to finish my life overseas, but we'll figure it out.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So you said baseball was your first love. So what position did you play when you first started playing baseball? And why was that your first sport? Like who did you really like back then?
I think, yeah, my dad, my granddad played in Negro Leagues. So that was really where I first got into following that. I was following that way before it was probably prominent or relevant. Outfield, center field, first base, and pitched. I did all three. So I think that I looked at older. My dad was an old school sports guy, so I grew up with the history of sports. So I grew up looking at Willie Mays. I grew up understanding Mickey Mantle, Babe Ruth, and all. The history of the sport was where I was. So I began to appreciate just where did it come from, where did it evolve from, and I spent my time studying the history more than the current players. Where did it come from? How did it get here? How's it evolving? And how is it changing? And I just want to be a part of that. So I was always a guy who was in an evolution, evolving, and that's why I stay fluid with the things that I do now.
Okay. All right. So you went from playing baseball to running track, and then you end up playing basketball. How long did you run track before you switched over and played basketball?
I did them all through high school. I think I stopped running cross country when I was a junior. But I played football, basketball, and baseball through my first 3 years, and then basketball my senior year only. I only did basketball my senior year. I just wanted to just focus on that, and don't really know why. I probably should have played all three because I just had fun doing it. But I just stopped and focused on that one because I wanted to really solidify college, and I wanted to make sure that I was really tracking the right way.
Okay. So on football, you played what position when you got to high school? And
Quarterback.
What was your favorite position?
Quarterback, but I probably should have played wide receiver. I played quarterback, and then sophomore, junior, I played wide receiver and quarterback. I liked wide receiver more, but at that time we were running the wing tee, so the quarterbacks were running back then, so there wasn't a lot of throwing. So I did a little bit of both, but I liked wide receiver better. And I think if I had to do it over again, I literally probably would have played wide receiver in football. What's funny to me is folks ask me all the time, I guess, about the players I played against. And one of the greatest players I ever played against was a guy named Chris Carter. And Chris Carter ended up playing football at Ohio State, but he's one of the best high school basketball players I ever played against in my life. And I probably would have had that same type of career as a wide receiver. I had great hands. I ran good routes. I had good speed. But I was just really one of those guys that 3rd and 5, 3rd and 7, I ain't going to drop it. Just throw it over here. I got you. And that was the way I've been. So that was always kind of my MO when it came down to it. It's carried through my life. I'm a guy you can always count on.
Yeah. So in high school, you ran track, you played football, played quarterback, a little bit of receiver. What year did you come to that crossroad of which sport you were going to actually play, and you decided to stick with it? And which coach influenced you to stick with the sport?
I think it was one my dad. I don't think it was a coach. I think, if you knew Big Gray, you would know that he pretty much set the standard for the things that I did. Allowed me to be me, but influenced it in all due respect. I was younger. My birthday was in November. So my parents wanted me to go to school early on. So I ended up entering school prior to. So in DC, you couldn't go into first grade unless you were 6 years old already, right? Mm-hmm. So my parents put me in a Montessori school so that I could be ahead of the game. So I was in first grade at 5 years old. So I was literally ahead of a class when it came down to it. So I was always the youngest guy in class. And so that was a big thing for me. There was always that you're gonna stay back and hold back. No, I'm gonna stay here. So I think that my perspective was early on, and I realized playing baseball, you could have been in the minor leagues for 7-8 years. And as a 16-year-old kid coming out of high school, I didn't want to travel on a bus or even try to live that life. When I got to, high school basketball and football, I mean, you looked at the football at the next level, I was big, but those were some big dudes, you know what I mean? So I was like, basketball is the easiest thing to slide into. I can do this thing right where I am, and I can let my body develop as it needs to develop. So that's why I chose that. And I think that football too, most kids coming out of high school redshirted. And to me, there was a personal stigma in redshirting. Redshirting was you weren't ready. And I didn't ever believe that about myself. So I didn't want that moniker in what I had. And I don't deny people doing it. And I'm not faulting them for doing it. It's for me, it said to me that I wasn't ready sufficient. I didn't want to carry that in my mind in anything that I did.
Okay. So for KJ, we was talking about high school and him making the transition from track to football and basketball. So I was going to ask you, Grayson, growing up in DC, during those development stages in the 80s, where it was really tough. I'm not saying that's how you grew up, but talk about some of the challenges that you faced back then, or some of the things that you had to overcome in order to get to where you were going.
I think the biggest challenge is the fact that DC was loaded with players, and you really had to wait your turn. You had to go from court to court. I mean, you think about it, we see a storybook, but you had to go to court to get your rep. And you started one court and you had to graduate to the next court, and you really had to earn your way on. Respect to the OGs. I mean, you had to literally become that player, and how'd you have to do it? I got to grind it on the blacktop every day. So if you ain't at the courts at 7, you don't get no run till 11. You know what I mean? So everybody's out there doing their thing early, and you had to start on this court, and then you graduated to this court, and you graduated to that court. And once that camaraderie and that brotherhood accepted you, now you were in the mix, and your name was known, and they looked for you, and they invited you to those places. But at that time, it was a hierarchy of learning. You had to earn your stuff out here, player, and it wasn't anything given to you. So I think that was the biggest challenge. There was so many players, and they were so good, and they were so great. I mean, you think about the DC era when I came out. You talking about Johnny Dawkins, Len Bias, Rodney Rice, Derek Lewis, Billy King, Carlton Valentine, Danny Ferry. I mean, you're talking about some of the greatest players to ever play. Adrian Branch. I mean, these were guys. When you went to the basketball courts on the weekend, these are the dudes you playing in the streets. You know what I mean? So that was what your competition was all day, every day. Every time you went out, this is who you were playing against. Tommy Amica, Linwood. I mean, these are legends in the history of basketball. Michael Graham, we right there at Georgetown. John Thompson. I grew up with Lil John, so we at Georgetown all the time. So we playing with Patrick Ewing. We playing with Reggie Lewis. We playing with Muggsy Bogues. I mean, because Baltimore's 45 minutes of the road. So you take the DMV, and then you take Baltimore and throw that in there. And this is who you are playing against every time you pick up a basketball. So I think that was the thing, is carving out your own niche, carving out your own level of respect, and then having to maintain and support it every time you stepped on the court.
Yeah. So did you get to play in any All-Star games?
Played in the McDonald's Capital Classic in DC, and that was a fun game. Playing against Danny Manning and Chris Washburn, and we all played in that game against each other at Bubba Diggs. And we had a great game there. Obviously went to 5-star every summer, so I played against the best of the best every summer, 5-star, and that was good. But again, I say this, KJ, there was, out of the elite, I was probably on paper here, but ended up finishing up here. You know what I mean? So I was always the other guy. And I didn't mind that, because all I did was learn and sit there and watch. And I just waited for my chance.
That's right.
Because I knew that if I got my opportunity, I knew what I would do. So I didn't force it. And I practice the same thing now. I don't force life. I let it happen. But I'm prepared. No question. I'm watching. I'm prepared for it. I'm ready.
So let me ask you. So the level of competition was very high in that area. Now, as I recall, Muggsy Bogues' team was probably like the top school in that area. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm. Dunbar, Baltimore. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So did you guys play them at all?
We didn't play Dunbar when I was in high school. Again, they were that whole area. I mean, they won a national championship in 83. They won the national championship at 31-0. So we didn't play them because at that time you had your own Catholic League schedule, which was stout in and of itself. We played DeMatha, Archbishop Carroll, Mackin, Good Counsel, O'Connell. I mean, it was a tough conference. So that was 16 games, and then you travel to play 2 tournaments. So to really get other games in, again, coaches are coaches. You don't want to put Dunbar on the schedule because you know what that's going to end up as. So I mean, you want to play the best, but this sometimes like can I do them or do them? Well, let's do them. We'll meet them if we got to meet them. And again, it was it's a separate time back then because the Catholic had its own champion, and Inter High had their own champion, and the county had their own champion. So they just happened to rise to another level. They were actually the national champions at 31-0. So they literally played a different schedule than most people did as an independent school.
Okay. And coming out of high school, what offers did you get coming out?
I really, KJ, I was set on going to Richmond. That's where I wanted to go. I was from DC. Richmond was 90 miles away. I wanted to go to law school. I figured that it was a competitive enough conference that I could have competition, but I knew I could probably play at an early level. When you think about the ACC at that time, from 82 to probably 94, it was the best basketball probably I'd ever seen played in college basketball. So to think that you are going to walk in there and do the things that I did, that I accomplished, that was never on the radar. I had a different plan, but God had another one. So when you talk about my ACC time, when you look at the conference, Georgia Tech had Mark Price, Henry Dalrymple, John Sally, Yvonne Joseph, Dwayne Farrell, Dennis Scott. I mean, that Tom Hammonds, that was what I was at. I mean, Duke had Tommy Amaker and Johnny Dawkins and David Henderson and Danny Ferry and Mark Allery and Jay Billis. I mean, that was who that was. Virginia had Olden Polynice and Tom Sheehy and Derek Sims and John Johnson. I mean, Mel Kennedy. This was who we played. Wake Forest at Muggsy Bogues, Delaney Rudd, Kenny Green, Anthony Tichy, Mark Klein. I mean, every night you went out, you were playing against a McDonald's All-American. Maryland had Len Bias and Derek Lewis and Adrian Branch and Jeff Atkins. And you didn't. I mean, Carolina had Brad Daugherty, Warren Martin, Dave Popson, Joe Wolf, Jeff Lebo. I mean, it was just Steve Hale. I mean, every night you went out, you were lined up against the best of the best in the world. NC State had Spud Webb and Nate McMillan and Lorenzo Charles and Cozell McQueen and Benny Bolton. I mean, so every night you went out, Vinny Del Negro, Rodney Monroe, Chris Corchian. I mean, every night you went out, you were playing against the best of the best in the whole world. So to think that you would do and accomplish the things that you did at that level, knowing the level of competition, I mean, I think everybody strives and desires for it, but you look at it every night and you really are up against it. But it was worth it. It was fun, and I appreciated every aspect and every part of it.
Wow. So you go into the recruitment. I mean, you go to the McDonald's All-American game. You play this is 1983. Talk about the players on your team in the locker room. And who's all on your squad, and who did y'all
see, 84, Derek Lewis, who went to Maryland. Derek was actually my next-door neighbor. You had Derek Sims, who went to Virginia. You had Dwayne Farrell, who went to Georgia Tech, and he was ACC Rookie of the Year. You had, who else was on our team? Wally Lancaster was on our team, who ended up going to Tennessee. What's funny is that literally most of the people that played in that, Carlton Valentine was on my team, went to Michigan State. Most of the guys that played on that team really didn't have great careers. They were great high school players, but it never manifested. Derek Lewis was the all-time leading shot blocker at the University of Maryland. Like I said, he was my next-door neighbor. But out of that whole group of Billy King was on that team, who ended up playing at Duke, but he didn't have a stellar basketball career. Went on to be an amazing VP in the NBA level with the Sixers, and did an amazing job at that level. But there weren't a lot of guys. Now on the other team, there was Danny Manning, there was Chris Washburn, there was Xavier McDaniel. I mean not Xavier McDaniel. There was Derek Chivas. There were a bunch of guys on that side that really went and did and had great college careers. But for the most part, it wasn't a very high end level name of people that you would probably remember.
Okay, cool, no problem. So going to your recruiting process, you got colleges from all over the nation probably recruiting you due to the exposure from your area at the time. Just a melting pool of talent, and you got ACC teams looking, SEC teams. Why did you choose Clemson over all the teams that you were offered?
Well, it's funny. Clemson kind of chose me, and I'll tell you what happened. I was, like I said, told KJ, I was really ready to go to Richmond, and they had been recruiting me since I was a freshman. And I just kind of said, I'm going to Richmond. Well, DeMatha High School, which is a legendary program in the DMV, we were playing DeMatha that year. All 5 of their starters, just like every year, got Division I scholarships. Quentin Jackson was the point guard, and he ended up going to NC State. And that night we played DeMatha, and they had a stacked team. Our team was good, but we weren't supposed to be competitive. We ended up losing by 4, and I had a great game that night. So when the game was over, Clemson University's assistant coach, Clint Bryant, met me on the court, and he said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm Clint Bryant from Clemson University." He said, "We were here watching Quentin. We'd never seen you play before." He said, "But we believe Quentin's going to go to NC State. We'd love for you to come to Clemson for a visit." So I'm like, well, it's Clemson. It's the ACC. I'm going to visit. I'm not going, but I'm going to visit. So the next day I'm on a plane going to Clemson. It was Michael Jordan's last college regular season game. It was at Clemson. They were playing at Clemson. And it was a Sunday afternoon game. I flew down on a Saturday. I loved the campus. I was on the campus, KJ, 5 hours, and told my dad I'm coming to Clemson. And he was like, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to Clemson." He said, "Is you serious?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah." I said, "I don't know what it is. I'm just supposed to be here." So I come back home. I talk to my high school coach, tell him what I want to do. I call Coach Dick Tarrant, who was the head coach at Richmond, and he said, "Grayson, look, that's a great school. It's a great conference. You'll be a hell of a player there. Just go ahead and go." So fine. So I'm verbally committed to Clemson. Well, 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from Clint Bryant. And he says, "Hey, we're about to go and negotiate Bill Foster's new contract. Call you when we're done." Mm-hmm. So he called me about 10 o'clock that night and told me that they did not re-sign Coach Foster, that he is now the new head coach at University of Miami. And the other 3 guys that had committed were going to Miami, and they wanted to know if I was going to follow them to Miami. I said, "Ain't no way I'm going to Miami." So I'm going back to school tomorrow and beg Richmond to take me back. So I go back to school. Coach Terrence says, "We still want you, no problem." I said, "Cool." Well, Cliff Ellis got the job the next day, and he found out that my uncle, Jim Howell, was the first black referee to referee the Final Four. That was my mother's brother. So he called my Uncle Jim, and he said, "Hey, look, your nephew is the only one that's still signed or verbally committed to Clemson." He said, "If I don't get him, then I got nobody going into the end of the recruiting period." He said, "So can you get me in front of him?" So my uncle, who's a basketball All-American at Archbishop Carroll, he went to American University. He was an All-American at AU, and he was the first black referee to referee in the Final Four. He called me up and he said, "Hey, you need to talk to this guy about what he's doing." He said, "Because I think your game will fit his program." I said, "Uncle Jim, I'll talk to him, but I'm not going." I said, "So I'm not going through disappointment twice. It's just not going to happen." Mm-hmm. So Cliff Ellis came into my home. I have a military uniform on. I just got home from school, and he talked to me for about 30 minutes, and the next thing I know, I'm going right back to Clemson. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So the situation and circumstances that got me there are completely out of the norm, and they were completely different, but they were well worth it. And that's why I really look at my life differently now, because situation and circumstances usually don't line up the way they're supposed to, but the end result is what it's supposed to be. So just kind of go with the flow and let it play itself out, because it usually, and not usually, it always works out.
So you get to Clemson, your first day on campus. Who's the player that embraced you on the team?
When I got to Clemson, probably Vinny Hamilton out of the older guys. Probably Vinny Hamilton. But my roommate was a guy named Harlan Graham, who was from Atlanta, Georgia. So that was the first kind of dude I met, because we were in the room together. And So he was a trip. He was 6'4" from Atlanta. He had come in late in the period, and these guys that came in late in the period were kind of not probably ACC talent because none of them stayed. They all transferred out because they weren't ACC talent, but they had to grab what they could grab. So Harlan and I were roommates my freshman year. But it's probably Vinny Hamilton. Then I became Glenn Corbett and I were very, very close, and we still are to this day. And Horace and I, roomed together on the road. So we had a bond. And our bond was really more of a quarterback to wide receiver bond. It was more or less early on, I'd come from a program that was very polished, and Horace came from Sparta, Georgia. So there were a lot of things that I was doing that was kind of a little bit faster paced, and they were used to a lot of passes I was making that they were like a half second behind. And we took a lot of time getting that thing to where no matter where I threw it, he had his hands on it. And that just kind of connected us in a certain way. But I was different. I wasn't the, and I kind of regret it sometimes, I wasn't the quintessential athlete. I was the student first. So I probably had more friends off the basketball team than I did on the basketball team. I spent time with just regular people, and I could blend in. I'm 6'2", right? When you're 6'11", you can't blend in nowhere. Everybody sees you. But I could blend in. I could be a regular guy. So I love baseball, so I spent time at the baseball games. I love the soccer. The soccer guys and I were good friends, so I spent time at the soccer games. So for me, I did my best to live the whole college experience. So I wasn't absorbed into my sport. I wasn't doing it 24/7. I did it at practice, and I did it to the level of perfection that I could. But other than that, I was hanging out. I was doing my thing. So I really enjoyed my college experience. But probably Vinny Hamilton, because he was a senior and because he had been in the league so long, just learning and listening from him was probably the first guy that embraced me.
So talk about being teammates with Elgin Campbell and Horace Grant at the time. I mean, you were the facilitator at the time with the court vision. Probably all-time assists. You helped those boys get to the promised land. They won championships. So talk about that experience and what you learned from them along the way as well.
The Horace was the workaholic. He was the guy who really, really put in the time. He did the work. He put in the work. He got bigger. He got stronger. He was driven, and I think and part of me wishes I had that at the time for basketball. I had it for life. I didn't have it for basketball. If I'd had it for basketball, my whole career would have been different. Eldon was the same way. Eldon was a different kind of animal coming from California. Eldon was just kind of laid back and just did his thing, but he was naturally gifted. Cliff Ellis had a very, very long line of working with big men. He had Horace, and then he had Eldon, and he had Dale, and then he had Sharon Wright, and he had Wayne Buckingham. He had a whole list of big guys that he worked with for a long time, and he was a great coach for big men. So their success had a lot to do with Dale Davis, obviously. Their success had a lot to do with the system that we played and the way we played, inside out first. So the big guys got their touches. Now, they couldn't have played in this era. They wouldn't have got any. Horace would have never been the player of the year in this era, But at that time, that the game was built on inside out, and we were deliberate in doing that, and it made for us becoming a successful team. And what it does, it allows for you to win with maybe not necessarily superstars, but very effective and efficient players. I used to liken it to a lot of like the New England Patriots. You had one or two stars, but everybody else knew their role, and they played it to the max, and they did it every single time, and you could count on it being what it needed to be. Not any more, not any less, but exactly what it was supposed to be.
That's right. Hey, talk about your first game with the Tigers, man. How was it? Was it electrifying?
The very first game, KJ, I don't think I've ever been enamored by the big stage. I've never been. I speak now and I travel, and those things, they never bother me. But my first game was against Athletes in Action. And it was just a kind of an exhibition game. And the guy who's starting ahead of me played, he started, but I played 28 minutes. And then the second game was against the Australian national team. He started, I played 30 minutes. And we played one game after that, and then we had our Thanksgiving tournament. I won the MVP of the Christmas tournament. So I was the first freshman ever to win MVP of the IPTE tournament. And so that's kind of when it all became kind of real. Like, you know what, I can do this thing. And it was like, I'm not, because my mindset going in was, you know, the guy in front of me was a junior. I'll work to get my minutes, but by the time I'm a junior, to be my team, you know what I mean? And everything just kind of happened just way faster than I thought. So I kind of got to where I was like, you know what, I can kind of do this. So winning MVP there, and then going to the Music City tournament, the second tournament being all tournament in Music City, that was kind of like, all right, I'm here. I can really do this thing, and I think that was all I needed, the opportunity to show what I could do and make the most of it.
So, talk about the competition that you played in the ACC at the time.
Man,
I know you guys, was
about like
high school. You couldn't catch a break.
Never.
North Carolina, from Duke, the Maryland in that era, Lynn Bias, to all those guys. Just talk about playing them every night, man, or every week.
I remember my dad asking me when I think it was a junior. He said, "Well, who's the toughest guy you played against?" And I think he had expected me to say some names because I played against Gary Payton, I played against Hersey Hawkins. Every team we played, I had to guard the best player. So every guard that we played against, I had to beat a stopper. But the toughest guy I ever played against was Mark Price. He was the hardest guy I ever played against. And it was Mark Price, and that was because he didn't have any weaknesses. You couldn't leave him open. He was going to knock it down from next week. He was quicker than everybody gave him credit for. He could dish it. He shot over 90% from the free throw line. He was just tough to handle. The one thing that did work in my favor, though, was that he didn't like contact. And so being an old school guy, and in the 80s, you could be physical. That was an advantage that I had. So Mark never had a great game against me, but the whole time was tough. And what Georgia Tech ran was a lot of double screens, a lot of submarine screens. So I'm running into John Sally and Yvonne Joseph. I'm running into John Sally and Antoine Ford. I mean, I'm running into John Sally and Scott. But every time I'm coming off a screen, I'm tired of hitting y'all. So that, it made it tough there. But I think that growing up with Johnny and Tommy in the DMV, playing them at Duke, I wasn't in awe of them, but there was a mutual respect. I remember one time we were playing Duke, and I got caught on the back screen. They ran a back screen for John. I got back screen bad. Nobody called it out. And he went up and he caught it and just laid it in. And he came back by running by me. He said, "Only because you're 202." He didn't dunk it. And that was kind of that respect thing there. But I mean, he went back door, and I ran into Danny Mahar, a big Canadian, and I just felt bad. I knew when I hit him, I said, "Oh Lord." I just knew it was coming, and he just laid it in. He said, "Only because you're 202, baby." And he dunked it. But Lenny, growing up with Lenny and being around those guys, I remember when Lenny couldn't shoot outside of 15 feet. I mean, and to watch him turn into one of the most unstoppable college players of all time. I mean, it was just that way every single night, and you had to embrace it. You had to love it. Just playing against some of the best players in the world every night, it was an honor. Nate McMillan, who's now a successful NBA coach. Spud Webb, who's an NBA. What's up, Buck? Spud Webb, who was a slam dunk champion. I mean, it was Muggsy Bogues, who went on and played 14 years in NBA and just blew everybody away, being able to do it at 5'3". It was every night. It was an adventure. Every night it was a challenge, and every night it was everything that the ACC was dreamed to be, and you had the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Well, talk about playing in the ACC tournaments. I know it's probably similar to just like high school.
KJ, it's funny you bringing up a lot of memories here, because when I signed with Clemson, the very first thing I looked at was the ACC tournament. And my junior year, the ACC tournament was going to be played in DC at the Capitol Center. So all I was living for was that game. It's where I played my high school All-American game. It's where I'm coming back home to play this. Right. And so 1986-87, we were ranked 7th in the country. We're 26-2. We literally are on our way to, and I really believe we'd have had a run at the national championship that year just because the way we were playing. We led the ACC in three-point shooting at 54%. I mean, Horace was unstoppable in the middle. I mean, we were something else. And I twisted my ankle at Duke with 3 games left in the season. We never won another game that year. And I could not play in the ACC tournament in my own hometown. I remember rehabbing for almost a week and a half trying to get it ready, and that was the big story. And I remember because we played Wake Forest the first game. We had finished second in the conference that year, only one game behind Carolina, and we were playing Wake Forest in the first round. And again, I had never had a problem with Muggsy. Muggsy used to wreak havoc on everybody else. Muggsy wouldn't wreak havoc on me, bro. I'd have known you since we were.
That's right.
Since we were little jits. I can do this. Look, I respect you, bro, but we gonna do this right here. And I remember Bob Stack, who was the head coach at Wake Forest. I came out on crutches during the shoot around. He looked at me and said, "You playing?" I mean, he looked at me like, "You playing? You faking?" I was like, "Coach, this thing killing me." Nah, you playing? I know you playing. And the whole essence was for me to come out and play. Mm-hmm. So we went. That was the day before the shoot around. The day of shoot around, I came out on crutches again, and he was saying the same thing to me. And we went in the locker room before the game, and they taped me up. I had an 11 on one foot. I had a 12 on one foot, a 12 and a half on the other foot with an air cast on it. Dang. And I came running out of the tunnel. Bob Stack's eyes were this big, and I think adrenaline had me for that first 2 or 3 minutes. And I went and shot a layup, and I couldn't stand up. I came back crying to the locker room. There was nothing I could do. If I could have played and Muggsy just wreaked havoc on us. We lost. We were ranked second, and we lost to the 8th ranked team because my backup couldn't handle Muggsy, and Muggsy just wreaked havoc on us. So we ended up losing that game, and then we ended up going to Atlanta as a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, playing Winston Garland and Southwest Louisiana, and we lose them in the first round. We never won another game that year. So the ACC tournament in of itself, KJ, obviously is iconic, and it's just it's its own showcase. I mean, playing the ACC tournament is its own showcase, and I wish we would have done better in the tournament than we did. But again, the experience was what it was worth, and I enjoy it, and I appreciate the opportunity to have been able to do it 4 years.
Oh yeah.
We're going to take a look at, some of the Clemson's top 25 men's basketball player real quick. For everybody that's watching, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Facebook, Spotify, and Deezer. And we appreciate you guys for tuning in and following us, all right? Let's go ahead and get into that clip real quick. Today's special guest, like I said before, we have the all-time assist leader in ACC and ACC legend, Grayson Marhsall Jr. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and get to that clip.
Nice.
Wyman over to the right side for McIntyre. Down on the baseline, Jameson.
3-2, 3-on-2, great, the Booker, and he jams it home.
To 5, this is Forrest. Can't get it to go. Rebound, Davis. Really sharp with passing decision. That's Campbell inside.
McIntyre to the top of the key for 3. Well, hits his second 3, and the Tigers lead 8-6.
It's his rookie, and he'll fire for 3.
And Scott probably will take the shot here with 5, 22 feet, the 3, boom! Wow!
Smith looking inside, almost dragged his foot. Now to Booker. Little pump fake. Drive past Knox. Another jumper left side. He's got it! On the run, he's fouled!
Montez baseline drive to the rack in the jam. Holy cow, the Montez stint.
Room like they did against Ole Miss. Long pass into Rivers. He's going to heave a long three, and he got it from 28 feet away. He's out, looking to feed, bouncing in the lane to Stitt. Feeds to Booker, and he throws it down with a left-hand jam.
Tigers ran the floor there like they knew what they were doing.
Gets it into Rivers. Fall away is no good. Mays with the follow. Got it! And we're going to double overtime.
To KC, dribbles out high, bouncing left block to Book, and he goes inside with a thunder's ham in Singler's face. Trevor Booker with a man in his face, looking to pass it in, gets it to Mays near midcourt. 6 seconds down 5. Mays going to drive, going to take it all the way, lays it up and in. 2.2 to go. Tigers back up. Mays took it, and he finished. 1 point lead for the Tigers. Inbound Fay. He's going to heave a long one, and it's off, and it's no good. And the Tigers hang on again.
They did it.
Another basketball game.
They're going to trap. Try to get the little fellow to cough it up.
To win it. .6 seconds still on the clock.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
That was awesome. That was awesome. That was awesome. I loved it. I loved it. That was awesome. Some great players. And sitting and watching them play, it was neat to just travel back for a minute and just embrace that. That was a nice clip. I appreciate that. That was really nice.
No problem, man. So just talk about the Clemson tradition a little bit for men's basketball. Let's talk about some of the coaches that coach you, and you can also talk about some of the memories, some of the funny stories you guys shared as teammates.
I think that the biggest thing about my time at Clemson was the fact that Clemson was always a football team. It was always a football school. And the time we were there, basketball was either rivaling or surpassing. And that was something that hadn't been done in a long time. It's not that way, obviously, now. But when we were playing, we were as big a ticket as the football team were. And there was a lot of unwritten, probably strife, frustration, animosity when it came to, because they were the big dogs. But I think for that 15-year, from the time I came in 84, probably to 94, 96, we were the show. We sold out. Everybody came to see it. So I think that was a big difference at the time. And again, I'm a Clemson football guy, so I'm not belittling Clemson in any way when it came to football, but they used to be big men on the totem pole. And we would have flashes of success a year here, a year there, but we had a run where we were packing Little John, and it was sold out, and it was fun. So I think that was a fun part, to be a part of that era, changing the game. Coach Foster had a very slow down type tempo kind of game, and we were running. So that was kind of different. Everybody who had been watching Clemson up until then, and with great teams like Bobby Conrad and Larry Nance and obviously Tree Rollins and Skip Wise back in the day, but they were more of a slow down, make it happen, and we would just get out the rim and go. I mean, that's just where we were. So it became an exciting time, and people kind of bought into it, and they attribute us to changing that culture. And that's something that even when I go back now, when I see the people and I see folks that were fans that are now, they got kids that are old now, and they say, well, I remember watching this guy play, and I remember you giving me your wristband back in the day. You think about all of those times and the memories that those folks have. So we traveled a lot. We went out of the country. We went to Hawaii. We went a lot of places, and I think that there was just a lot of camaraderie, a lot of fun. But again, for me, I was never the quintessential basketball guy. I just wasn't. I've always been a guy that kind of walks to the beat of his own drum. Now, when we're on the court, let's do this thing. But outside of it, I'm just, and part of me sometimes wishes it would have been different, but it still holds true in my life today. I'm still very focused on the things I need to do. I don't have a lot. My circle's small for a reason, and but I'm a very social person when it comes to it. But my intimate circle is very quiet and closed, and I'm just driven there. So I think that's kind of been a part of who I've been my whole life. when I'm on the court and when I'm speaking in front of folks, I'm larger than life. But when I'm kind of, to myself, I'm just me. And I just like that way, unassumingly, just being myself. I know what I'm good at, and I don't have a problem with pursuing that when it comes down to it. But I respect everybody with where they are, who they are, and what they want to become, and how can I help you get to that next level? That's all I care about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Talk about being in the Clemson Hall of Fame, 2009.
2009 was a great year. What's funny, KJ, is that at Clemson you have to be nominated. So you have to be nominated by somebody who's already in the Hall of Fame. So to do that in 2009 was neat, and it was a crazy experience because I rented an RV to bring my family up. At the time I was married and I have 4 kids, and we grabbed a couple more people. So it's probably about 9 of us on the RV, 10 of us maybe. And we got to Bluffton, South Carolina, and the RV broke down. Whoa. So we had to drive. No, where were we? We were somewhere else because we had to go back to Bluffton to rent 2 vans and then drive back to pick everybody up and get there. And I think I got to the Hall of Fame dinner 10 minutes before it's supposed to start. 10 minutes before it's supposed to start. And I talked about that in my Hall of Fame speech, where my induction in the Hall of Fame was kind of full of circumstances, just like me going to Clemson. I shared with you earlier. It was just a crazy set of circumstances. I wasn't supposed to go. I was signed, then I said I'm not going, and everything changed. I ended up going, and the kind of same thing happened. But I just realized that the destiny for my life went through that Tiger Town, and everything that I've become, I can look back and attribute it to those things now. The things I do in business now, I'm directly related with former Clemson people. So a lot of the things that I'm doing professionally now are very tied to, in some way, shape, or form, Clemson University. I just saw Wayne Buckingham on it earlier. One of the things that I'm honored to always do is support him and how he continues to support fallen athletes or athletes going through stuff. And being a big part of those things keeps the Clemson family intact. And I attribute him and his commitment to that in re-engaging people and reconnecting people. And I love being a part of that. So anytime I can support it, and I guess it's just the assist guy in me. What can I do? What can I do to make somebody else look good? And that's kind of just how I'm wired, and I can't do it any other way.
So talk about life after basketball. After college, you went into the corporate field, I guess, or you went into entrepreneurship. Talk about that transition that you made. And I guess give some advice for some people who are out there trying to start their own business and how, they shouldn't be afraid to step out on faith.
I knew a long time ago that I did not want to be in regular jobs. I didn't. When I was a little kid, I used to watch soap operas. I was enamored with soap operas growing up. And what I loved about soap operas was the fact that these guys were running companies. I know it was TV, but I loved the fact that they wore their suits every day. They got up. They were making deals, making decisions. I just thought that was awesome. That's what I wanted to do. So when I got done playing ball, moving back home to D.C., I grew up old school, mama's house, mama's rules, right? So my parents were both educators. They were both teachers. And I knew that if I stayed in D.C., I was going to be a teacher. That's not happening. I'd rather go fall on my face first. Yeah. So I ended up moving to Florida and really realized, and I'm going to give you some real life experience here, realized that school didn't teach me anything about the world. The world plays by a different set of rules than they teach in school. And I had to learn that. I had to realize that what I learned in college did not prepare me for the world in any way, shape, or form. So I had to relearn so many different things. I had to reassess my direction. I had to realign my words. My whole concept about life had to change. I began to read different books. I began to align myself with different people because they had a different perspective. That degree, as much as it was an accomplishment, didn't mean much and didn't transition much into it. So I literally failed when it came down to it. And I'll use that as a term because people think either success or failure. So I'll use failure as a term, but there is no such thing as failure. The one thing I learned is that school taught you that failure was bad. But in essence, failure is the only way to success. And the United States of America is the only country that pays hella big for failure or apparent failure. When I look at baseball, Mike Trout's one of the best baseball players that's ever played and is playing now. And he gets out 7 out of 10 times. He gets out twice as many times as he does get hits, and he makes $450 million to get out twice as much. Steph Curry just broke the all-time NBA three-point record tonight. He broke Ray Allen's record tonight, but Steph misses more than he makes, but he gets paid a lot of money to miss. So what I had to learn is that you have to be willing to do that. Not want to do it, but have to be willing to do it. And so there were so many things that I did. So I got into business early, made some decisions that weren't right. Timing was wrong, but ultimately learned from it and built a bunch of franchises. Successful in that space. Written 6 books. I'm successful in that space. I'm a gifted keynote speaker, so I'm successful in that space. I'm still in great shape when it comes down to it. I haven't succumbed to letting the world and life take me over. I'm still in amazing shape. I do yoga 3-4 times a week. My mind stays sharp when it comes down to it. So all those things are important to me. And I just maintain a love for business. I'm just about making significant change, impacting people, and challenging the status quo. I don't like keeping normal. I don't like folks keeping normal. And I want to challenge folks to think. I want folks to really use this thing for more than a hat rack. Think a little differently. Think critically. Don't just let stuff happen and not question it. If it doesn't make sense, call it for what it is.
Okay.
And that's how I live, and that's how I've been successful.
There you go. All right. So talk about what you got going on now and how the people can, follow you, or how they can reach out to you if they need any, consultations or any advice for their business.
They can go to my website, therealgm.live. Everything is on therealgm.live. I work with a lot of athletes in transition out of sports. What can I do now? What am I doing? What should I be doing? So I deal with kids immediately in transition, and I deal with athletes that have been out of transition for 15, 20 years that are lost in the world and don't know what to do. It's all based on faith. My faith is as strong as it's ever been. God is the center of my life, but I'm not going to preach, and I'm not going to beat you over the head with religion. But I am going to tell you that it's not going to work without faith. So that's an important part for me. And it's the way my life is centered, and I won't deny that or hide that from anybody. What I do now is I actually have been fortunate enough to really impact the world where it's needed. Everybody's dealing with this COVID airborne virus issue, and I have technology that allows me to clear and disinfect spaces and literally kill COVID and any other airborne virus within 3 minutes. So that's been an amazing thing for me. So I work with municipalities. I work with schools. Just did the whole Baylor University sports program, just redoing that. We did the whole San Antonio school system, retrofitting their stuff so it can be done. So it's different technology. It's the opposite of HEPA filters. It's the opposite of UV lighting. And so it allows me to use a different technology called the law of gases. And it works with the same concept as microwave popcorn. When you pop microwave popcorn in your house, you smell it everywhere. And that's eminent of the law of gases. That means it's going out. So bipolar ionization, HEPA filters, and UV lighting need the virus to come to it. And if the virus comes to it, they can filter and deal with it. They can't kill it. I don't wait for it to come to the filter. I go after it. So we go kill it in the air and on surfaces. So now you can actually operate in your spacing without worrying about any other any form of correct. So I don't care if it's H1N1. I don't care if it's black mold. I don't care if it's MRSA. I don't care if it's staph. It doesn't matter. If it's out there, we kill it. So it emits these bipolar. It emits these molecules 24/7 at 1,200 feet per second. And we literally kill everything within a 2,000-mile radius with one unit. And I've got commercial units and everything. So I'm retrofitting businesses. I'm making places safe, making schools safe, making homes safe. And that's what I do. The timing couldn't be any better. So I'm just excited about that.
Cool. Yeah. What's your advice for the youth?
My advice for the youth is what I said earlier, is that think for yourself. Don't get moved by narratives and emotion. We're living in a world right now where people are getting moved by emotion. And what they're finding is, if they really look, is that the narratives that you're following don't even line up with what you say you believe in. And I'll give you a quick example. The movement that just went, Black Lives Matter, had nothing to do with Black people. And if you look at the website, it had zero to do with Black people. and you have a whole group of people following something that really was set to destroy you. But you didn't even have enough good guts and gumption to read the website. If you just read it, it says it right there. So we have a generation that's being moved by new narratives when it comes to marriage and partnership. There's new narratives out there. When it comes to dress, there's new narratives out there. So we have the feminization of men, the emasculation of men, and they're not being who they could be. So what I would tell them is to find true examples of what you want to follow. And even though it may go against the popular narrative, I tell folks what's popular is not always right, and what's right ain't always popular. So you got to decide what you really want to follow, and they need men to stand up and be men and be the true epitome of what a man is. A man is empathetic. A man is humble, but a man is still strong at the same time.
That's right.
A man is understanding, he's covering, but he's also disciplined. You know what I'm saying? So what they've given us is if you are empathetic or you're courteous or chivalrous, now you're soft. Well, that's the wrong mindset. So you have a narrative that young people are being fed, and I tell them all the time, you trust what you hear the most. So if we don't take platforms like this to really express to them what needs to be done and put in front of them, what they hear more than this, they'll begin to become immune to. And the things that they know go against everything that they believe in now become whatever. And that's not the way it can be. Society is always going to be dependent on the man. And if you remove the man, you remove the covering, you remove the structure, you remove the power, and you remove the direction of any society. And that's kind of where we are right now. And that's why it's important for us to continue to grow, learn, connect, exchange ideas, challenge each other. You know, one of the things I've done for a bunch of years, I've studied the Jewish culture. And one of the things the Jewish culture believes in is that if everybody agrees, something wrong. If everybody in the room agrees, something is wrong. Somebody got to be thinking different. Even if that thought is not the right thought, if we're all in agreement, something is wrong. But we live in a world where that's what we look for. We look for everybody to agree, and that's not ever going to be. If everybody agrees, somebody's not thinking. Somebody's not bringing an alternative to it. And the only way we've gotten to where we've gotten to be in this country is people thinking differently than other people. We wouldn't be flying if two men didn't believe that it could happen. Everybody else said it couldn't. Well, no, they believed it could. And all those things are, so everything that we've done in accomplishing, no matter who the race was, no matter who the person was that designed it or started it, they had to think a little bit differently, even when somebody said they couldn't do it. And we're now working in a world where everybody wants to kind of be on the same page. We don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. Everybody's emotional. Everybody's sensitive. You can't say nothing anymore. I was watching a movie the other night, and they changed the words to an old Christmas song, Baby It's Cold Outside, because they said it's depicting a man overly controlling a woman, trying to seduce her into, I mean, it's a Christmas song, bro. What are we doing right now? But this is where we've gotten to. So we just have to, again, understand the times. The sons of Issachar in the book of Chronicles in the Bible, it says we need to understand the times and know what to do. And so what we have to do is become very clear on who we are, stand for what we believe in, not demean somebody for their belief, but stand where yours is, maybe understand where they are and agree to disagree. But we have to reset a new standard when it comes to where we are. So I would tell young people today, have a standard, set it, stick to it. And if it has you going against the grain, you're probably going in the right direction.
That's right, man. Good message. Good message. Any shout outs for any family members or coaches or players before we head out?
I want to shout out to the whole entire Tiger Nation. Anybody who loves that orange, I want to shout out to all those folks. Anybody that's watching me on any of these platforms tonight, thank you for watching and support these guys. Sports Shop 27, follow them on YouTube and every other platform that they have. I think that with all the distractions that we have in the world, good, clean conversation, hearing stories of success and overcoming are what people need in this time, because there's a lot of despondency, there's a lot of frustration, and there's a lot of negativity. And we need to present people with people that are overcoming, people that are positive, people that still have faith, and people that are living lives that can be modeled after. And that's what I believe we need to do. So follow these guys and continue to support everybody that's doing something to enhance the next generation.
Man, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Grayson. Thanks for coming on the show with some, words of wisdom for everyone. We appreciate you guys tuning in as well. You guys check out his website and links if you need any type of consultation. He has great news, great advice for you. I just took some for myself. I appreciate it a whole lot coming on the show. You guys just tune in to another edition of Sports Shop 27. I'm your host, Jermaine Coulter. And to my far right, I got my co-host KJ, Kevin Johnson. And we'd like to thank today's special guest, former Clemson University point guard and all-time assist leader and all-ACC legend and Hall of Famer 2009, Grayson Marhsall. All right?
Fellas, thank you so much. Continued success. All the best to you guys.
Oh, man.
No problem.
You got it.
It's not how you start, it's how you
That's
finish.
how you finish. That's
All
right. You got it.
Until
Good night,
next time, you guys wear your mask, be safe, and we'll see you later. Peace.
Peace.